So Bernie Sanders has suggested free college tuition. Elizabeth Warren is going to go even further than Bernie Sanders. It's going to be amazing, guys. She is now proposing to wipe out Americans' college debt completely. College debt forgiveness, okay, which would actually be a violation of the Constitution of the United States. That would be a full-on violation of the Takings Clause. The Takings Clause suggests that I cannot simply, as the government, declare all private debt to be null and void. That would be me taking something of value from you without just compensation, not even for public use. That's for private use, right? You get to keep the benefits, and it's not going to the government. The benefit doesn't go to the government. Now, this is stupid in 1,000 ways. In 1,000 ways. Let me read you what her proposal is, and then I'll explain why this is so incredibly dumb and counterproductive and doesn't fulfill even what it is attempting to do. So she has proposed to wipe out student debt and tuition at public colleges. She unveiled on Monday her proposal for easing access to higher education. It would spend $1.25 trillion over 10 years to eliminate up to $50,000 in student debt with household incomes under $100,000. Okay, first of all, I will note, this is already a wealth redistribution that actually favors people who are middle class or wealthier. Because who do you think is going to college? It's mostly people who are middle class or wealthier people who have higher income potentials and higher income trajectories. So you're talking effectively about taxing low income people in favor of middle and high income people. She says she would allow states to make public colleges tuition free. There are already states that do this, like University of Tennessee. And she wants to spend $100 billion on expended Pell Grants to defray more non-tuition expenses. So she wants to simply wipe out all of this college debt. Her plan would scale back relief for people with incomes above $100,000 and would end it entirely at the $250,000 level. She said her proposal would benefit 95% of the 45 million Americans carrying student debt and wipe it out for 75% of them. She said that this would stimulate the economy by improving credit scores. That's so funny. I love that. So we're going to eliminate debt that you're unable to pay to improve your credit score. In other words, we're going to game the credit score system. The credit score system is I took out a debt. Now I have to pay back that debt. Every time I pay back that debt, my credit score goes up. Every time a debt collector is called, my credit score goes down. Her solution, what if we just forgive the debt and then that increases your credit score? This is the equivalent of when the city of Los Angeles decided that South Central Los Angeles had too much crime, and if they just called it South Los Angeles, that would fix the problem. No, the problem is you're not paying your debts. The problem is not that your credit worthiness goes up if we simply forgive your debts. It's insane. And then she says this would increase home buying. Great. So the people who are incapable of paying back their college debts, we should definitely make it super easy for them to take out home loans. Maybe we could call them, like, I know these aren't prime borrowers. Maybe what we should do is probably call them subprime borrowers. And what we could do is have the government subsidize subprime home loans to people who are incapable of paying off their debts in other ways. And then we could grant them these subprime home loans with government subsidies. And we could incentivize private businesses by saying that if those subprime home loans are not paid back, then the government will bail you out. It'll be totally fine. I feel like this would be a really good plan for fixing the mortgage system. Subprime home loans provided by the government for people who are not creditworthy. What could go wrong? Nothing. Probably everything will be fine, guys. Everything will be fine. And then she says this will ease small business formation. If you want to ease small business formation, let me make you a recommendation. Instead of incentivizing lenders to give money to people to go to college, to major in lesbian dance theory, instead, we should be incentivizing lenders to lend money to people who are starting businesses. You know one way to do this. Stop insisting that everyone who is smart has to go to college. Stop insisting that the pathway to success in the United States is to go major in Maya Angelou's poetry at JUCO. That is not correct. She also wants to cut off federal money from for-profit colleges. She says those enrich themselves while targeting lower-income students. Targeting lower-income students? You know how hard Harvard is trying to get low-income students in? They're kicking Asians out for no reason to get low-income students in Harvard. She says that private colleges are the problem. No, you want to know why the cost of tuition is so high? Because of publicly sponsored tuition. That's why the cost is high. Every area where the government subsidizes, prices go up. This is true in healthcare. It is true in tuition. Every time the government gives you free money, people increase the prices on the thing that you are now buying. Why? Because there's more money in circulation. You don't. Okay, so her proposal makes no sense. If you actually wanted to fix all of this, you actually eliminate federal involvement in student loans, and fewer people go to college. And that would be a good thing, because not everyone needs to go to college. Instead, we would have apprenticeships, people who are skipping college to apprentice themselves in a business where they get to learn a skill set. What colleges are good for, I've said this for years, what colleges are good for is two things. They're fundamentally a sorting mechanism. So if you went to Harvard, we assume you're smarter than someone who went to JUCO. And two, they create a social fabric of friends with whom you can correspond and get jobs. And that's what college is for. Well, by vastly broadening the number of people going to college and creating affirmative action programs that skew the system, what you're actually doing is eliminating both of the actual effective methods of increasing income mobility inside colleges. You're getting rid of the sorting factor on the one hand, and on the other hand, you're also getting rid of the ersatz social fabric, because you don't create a social fabric at JUCO. Those are not people you associate with the rest of your life. This really only applies to elite colleges. That doesn't exist. Sending somebody to a low-level state school with free tuition to major in whatever they please is not going to materially better their lives. That's silly talk. So Elizabeth Warren is proposing all of this stuff. Kevin Williamson laid this out a while back in a piece that he wrote for National Review, a 3-step plan. Actually, he wrote this a couple of days ago. He said, here's a 3-part plan for doing something practical. 1, the federal government should stop making college loans itself and cease guaranteeing any such loans. Why? Because that would force banks to actually try to determine whether a loan was going to be paid back based on the major. I could take a loan for law school. Why? Because I was going to be a lawyer, which meant I was a good bet. The collateral was me. Step 2, it should prohibit educational lending by federally regulated financial institutions, or require the application of ordinary credit standards in any private educational lending, treating the student as the main credit risk, in the same way that you would a mortgage. And 3, it should make student loan debt dischargeable in ordinary bankruptcy procedures. So this would put the risk on the banks. The banks would have to make an actual decision as to whether people should get a loan or should not get a loan based on whether they think the person's going to be able to pay the thing back or not. Right? This makes sense. But what Elizabeth Warren is talking about makes no sense. Fortunately, being in the 2020 Democratic Party means never having to say anything sensical. You don't have to say anything. You just have to promise a lot of free stuff. So Elizabeth Warren going to trot this out and hope that this sticks as well. Unlikely, but who the hell knows?